All right, Jess. So we got our stock all prepped. We've got it all laid out the way we want it. We've reestablished the group with our marks, so we know it's exactly the way we laid it out, but these are still separate, and now we got to glue them together. Gluing is easy, but preparing and being prepped is important, especially when you have this many glue joints. The glue has about a 20-minute working time. We don't want to be having it drying here while we're still applying glue there. So a couple of things. We're working on top of our dovetail table. That'll help us clamp some of this stuff down. We're going to use a pair of long bar clamps to apply pressure across this way, but we're also going to use our dovetail clamps to hold the edges down so that everything stays nice and flat. But we don't want to get glue all over everything, so we've got parchment paper underneath. I use either wax paper or parchment paper. Both of them work really well for protecting surfaces from glue. We've got our glue. We're using a waterproof glue, in this case Titebond 3. It's waterproof, so you're never going to want to put this in the dishwasher, but it is going to get washed. It's a cutting board, and this will keep the thing from coming apart over time. We have a glue roller, which we'll use to spread the glue, and then we've got a couple of straight edges here that we're going to use with our clamps to hold these two edges down once we get it all laid out. So the easiest way to do this is to simply flip all of the pieces down the same way, because these are the edges that are going to get glue, right?
Yep.
So now we're going to do that all but the last one. So now we're going to put glue on each of these going across, and then we're just going to turn them back up and stick them together as we go. All right, so basically we don't need a ton of glue. Anything that gets squeezed out while you're clamping is wasted.
Okay.
But you need enough that you're not going to starve the joint. It's got to be a good joint. So we're just going to lay a couple of beads of glue down and use our cute little roller here to apply the glue, get it nice and even going across. I applied a little bit more on the first one because a lot of the glue ends up on the roller, but that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hand that to you.
Yep.
And we'll try just two. Notice I'm not doing anything complicated here. I'm just going to lay a bead of glue down using the nozzle that's on the bottle.
Oops.
That's okay. That's why the parchment paper is here. It's going to get messy.
So is that a new bottle of glue?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's more than enough for what we're doing here.
I was going to ask because the tip looks really clean. And
I actually cleaned it out because you pretty much have to clean them out all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Now, it's easier if you do a little bit of a separation in between them.
Actually, right hand.
Yep, do it the way you need to.
All right.
And keep in mind, too, you'll know when you get done here how much you put on and whether it's too much or too little.
Okay.
You can always add more later.
Good point.
That doesn't look too bad. And you'll notice if you look at the first one, you can see how it's kind of flowing out and starting to lay level. Now,
do we want to get the edges pretty saturated?
No, just the face is what we need to do. Because again, when we squeeze these together, it is going to squeeze out a little bit.
Okay.
And we want a little bit of squeeze out, but we don't want glue just dripping off the thing because that's just waste.
So it's really all about the prep work.
Yeah, it is.
To have a nice finish.
Anytime you're gluing up a lot of pieces at the same time, making sure that you have a plan in mind for how you're going to assemble, and then having everything prepped. You don't want to have all your glue spread and then be running around trying to find the clamps or, locate the parts you need or whatever. Because if the glue starts to set up too early, then it becomes much more difficult. It's not so bad with a cutting board because it's all flat to flat. But if you're assembling like a complex piece of furniture with mortise and tenon joints, tongues and grooves that have to go together and stuff like that, it can get complicated.
What about like debris like that? We want to pick those out, right?
Yeah, if you can. All right, excellent. Just go ahead and set that over here on the parchment paper. All right, so now we'll bring this one in, and we're just going to start flipping these up just like this. And you can kind of see me wiggling them just a little bit together. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and flip each one up, and then don't worry about squeezing them together too much. That's what the clamps are going to do.
Okay.
And we're going to align one edge because it doesn't really matter. They don't, the pencil lines are there to show us what order we arrange them in, but they don't have to line up perfectly.
Got it. Ooh, this one's already tacky.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's why the prep is so important. And if you were worried about it, you could glue up half of it and then get that under clamps, glue up the other half, get that under clamps, and then glue them together. But we've got enough time on this one.
A little wiggle.
All right, excellent. Now, the blue clamps behind you, grab those.
Yep.
We can use parallel clamps. We can use bar clamps. These, the bottom is going to come forward. So undo the screw a little bit.
Okay.
And then I'm going to bring the bottom forward until it locks. And then the screw will pick up the difference. I'm going to slide this forward just a little bit so that, there you go. Now that we're off the end, we can clamp it. And just apply enough pressure. It doesn't have to be a lot. There you go. Looks like we're getting some pretty good squeeze out here. I want to put one more in the center. Now, if we're going to use the dovetail table to clamp this down and keep it flat, but if I didn't have a dovetail table, what I would probably do is put a couple of clamps underneath and then a couple on the top. That way the ones underneath are going to push it upward, but the ones on top are going to push it down and it'll stay level. But in this case, I think we're going to be good with what we've got. And because we're going to work onto the table using the dovetail clamps, it's going to make it easier. And you can see here we're getting a little bit of squeeze out all along all the lines, and that's exactly what we want. And it doesn't have to be super dreadfully tight. Oh, this one's a little bit into the groove. There we go. Doesn't have to be super dreadfully tight because we're not trying to force the joints closed. We have good joints. We made good joints. All right. So now what we want to do is I want to put these on the ends and clamp them down in the groove so that we keep this flat. So again, I've got a little bit more parchment paper. That's going to keep everything from sticking together. This just happens to be the perfect size to fit in between the clamps. All right, so let's grab some dovetail clamps.
Okay.
There's two. And what do we got? We got 4 grooves there, so use all 4. I'll grab a few more. Yeah, the parchment paper, you can just fold it right up out of the way if you want to, whatever. Won't be in our way. This is just about keeping the parts flat on the table. Nice. Now, normally, with most wood glues, you're going to wait minimum of 20 minutes for it to set up. This, I would leave it a lot longer. We're going to leave this overnight. And the next time we get together, what we're going to do is we'll trim the ends off using a panel cutting sled on the table saw. And then we're going to cut it into strips, which we can then rearrange and re-glue. So we'll be doing that the next time we
Fun.
get together.
Okay.
But we'll leave this overnight, and then the next step will be to cut it and re-glue it. And then from there, we'll set up a program on the CNC to flatten it, make it level and flat, parallel on both sides. And then we can talk about juice grooves and the other things we want to do.
Cool. Exciting.
Excellent.